I've picked up a batch of propellers for the AeroScout to do some experimentation on, see thrust, total grams of thrust at full power. Obviously we don't know, a power curve, but I'm not really interested in that for my tests. I just want to compare all these, apples to apples, how the thrust, maximum thrust, amperage draw on the battery, because we want to make sure that we don't exceed the ESC, and interested in what they sound like. Different propeller pitches and diameters, and they're going to affect your acceleration, your climb, top speed, all that, and it's just fun to play with. So I've got a batch of 6 different props here. 4 of them are 2-bladed props, and I got a couple of 3-bladed props. This is kind of a continuation of that last episode I did where I checked that prop. Now that 3-bladed prop is discontinued, so a lot of people were complaining, why are you even bothering to test that one? If it's discontinued, we can't get it. And they're still around on some shelves. If you look, hobby shops, I found those just the other day. So that's why I did a test on them. But all of these are current props. These are all from Master Airscrew. This is not a sponsorship. I just went out and bought all these. They're pretty cheap, only like $2-3 bucks a piece. I think maybe one of them was maybe $5 bucks, but all the other ones were just a couple of bucks. So just paid for these out of my pocket. Let's start here. Though I'm going to do the test here. We're going to start out with the 2-bladed prop here. I've got a 5.5 by 4.5 pitch. I think this is probably going to be the closest in size and pitch to the stock prop. Some of these have the same hub diameter as the motor has on it. I may have to drill some of these out. Some of them might be bigger. I did notice that some of them include little hub bushings to compensate for that, so we'll see what I need to do to get them to fit. Some of them may not even fit, but I'll go through each one at a time and see what it takes to get it on the AeroScout, and then we'll do a thrust and amperage test and a sound test to see what they sound like, because I personally like the sounds of different props. But so first one we're going to do is this 5.5 by 4.5. We'll see how it fits. Then we're going to go to this 6 by 3. Definitely has a bigger hub hole, but I think I can feel in there that there's some spacer bushings in that one. I don't feel anything in this one, but it's pretty small. Then we're going to go to the 6.5 by 3.5. Let me get you the part numbers on these. So this first one here, that's a MA.GF05545N01. Second one here is a MA.E006. Might be an EO06. That first O looks different than the number O. So I think it's an EO06 by 30N01. That's the 6 by 3. Then I got the 6.5 by 3.5. Part number MA.SC06535N01. Then we'll get up to the 6.5 by 4 pitch. It's a MA.EO06540N01. And then I got a couple of 3-bladed props here. This is a 6 by 3.2. Part number MA.3M06 by 32NB1. And then the last one is a 6 by 4. Part number on this one, MA.3B06X40N01. Alright, I want to get the weight of each prop. Here's the 5 by 5 by 4.5 propeller. This is in grams. 5 grams. Hope you can see that here. So 5 grams on that one. The 6 by 3, 6 grams. 6.5 by 3.5 Scimitar, 6 grams. The 6.5 by 4, 7 grams. Now we got the 6 by 3.2 3-blade. That's only 4 grams. And the last one is the 6 by 4 3-blade. 6 grams. That's the order we're going to do it. Just basically smallest to biggest. And then I'm going to do one 3S battery. I'm going to test 3 props on one battery, and I'll test the last 3 on a second battery. Probably about 5 seconds per thrust test is about all it needs, so it shouldn't affect the battery voltage enough to skew the results. So let me get my plane set up, anchor it to my table again, and we'll get started. Let me also show you the parts I'm using to do this. I'll put some links below to these things. First of all, I got this amperage meter, so there's that. Now, it didn't come with any ends on it, so I put these connectors on it out of a kit that I had picked up that just has an assortment of different DC connectors. Anyway, I had to put these on myself, so it did not come with these adapters. If you pick that up, be prepared to put your own fittings on it. You could use alligator clips or something else just to get it to connect, but I put these on so I can easily put it in line between my battery and my airplane. Makes it easier to do a quick test. The scale I'm using is just a portable electronic scale. Use it for fish or luggage or whatever, but it's easy to hook it onto something and then hook this little hook onto your device. And then of course I'm just using the standard Spectrum 3S 2200 batteries, 30C. And if you want to change your prop on that, you need to get a nut. So it does have left-hand threaded nuts. These are ones that have the nylock thing in them. Now, some of the props, if they're thicker, the nut may not go on far enough to actually engage with the nylock. So you gotta make sure you get it good and tight when you put a different prop on it, because that may or may not engage. The kit that I got, I don't know if it'll come up by this if you search for it, but X001G24K8F. And it's just like a drone kit, but it's got both. Now the black ones are the left-hand threads, the red ones are right-hand threads. The red ones are not, I don't use them for this application, so they don't fit, but anyway, it comes with 4 of each. So you use the black one for the AeroScout. And of course I'm using my RadioMaster TX16S, just a wrench to get the nut on. Let's get it set up on the AeroScout. Alright, got the first prop out. It's a 5 by 5 by 4.5. The hub sides, I'll put it up on the screen here, but it was significantly too small. I used a number 10 drill bit to drill it out. So here's my number 10 drill bit, but that it was still tight, but it made it fit. It fits now. Let's throw it up on the Dubro balancer just to make sure that it's mostly balanced. I'm not going to go too crazy with the balancing, but I do want to make sure it's not way out of whack for the test, so I'll do the same thing to each one of them. Alright, got the 5.5 by 4.5 prop on the balancer. Let's see how it does. Alright, definitely got a heavy spot on the bottom there. Flip it around, make sure it's... Yeah, that's definitely heavy on the bottom here. So let's, just to keep it simple, I'm just going to get a little piece of tape. I like to use electrical tape. Yeah, this one's off enough that I'm going to try to get it a little more balanced. That seems pretty excessive. So what I like to do, you don't want to tear the tape, of course, because it needs to be smooth as possible, but I just get a little strip of electrical tape, nothing too substantial. Just want to do a little bit at a time. So let's start with that. It's got a tiny little piece, and I'm going to put it on the back side of the lighter blade right here, and I'll start it right in the middle and see how that affects it. So you can't even tell it's there once you get it on. Still heavier, so I'm going to move it right out to the outer edge. Try that. So tape's over here. Definitely closer, but that'll work for this. Now here's an example of the prop. The hub is a little bit too thick, so I'm not going to get the nut on far enough to engage the nylock, but I'll get it tight enough. So the motors on these spin this way, and you need to keep it that way, otherwise the nut can unscrew itself. So with it spinning this way, if it did get loose, it would generally tighten itself back up. If you put a different prop on there where you have to reverse the leads on the motor and you run it this way, it has the potential to unscrew itself. Alright, this is test number 1 of the 5x5 by 4.5 propeller on the AeroScout. Alright, let's set it. Alright, a little bit more thrust than the stock prop. I remember that one got 600 grams. I'll have to look at the footage. I didn't see the amps. Alright, we'll do one more test just to have 2 per. This is the second test on the 5x5 by 4.5 prop. Boy, a lot less amperage on on the amp meter. I was only 17 amps when I noticed it. And more thrust. That could be a really good winner there. Alright, let's move on to the next prop. Alright, now let's get on to the 6x3. This one did come with some bushings for the size because the hole is significantly bigger. But I have found that this one here matches the size of the hub. So I'm going to pop that one out and need to deburr it a little bit. Let's see how it balances. All right. Well, that's pretty good. Alright, let's get it put on the plane. It's pretty close to the fuselage, but I got a good 1/4 inch, 3/8. Alright, test number 1 with the 6x3 prop. Wow, that one was not very good. 500 grams. Amps were pretty high too. So yeah, that's definitely not a good one. Let's try one more test. Alright, test number 2. Yeah, not a fan of that one. Alright, we're checking the 6.5 by 3.5 Scimitar now. I did have to drill it out just a little bit. But definitely 6.5 is the limit. That is super close. That's probably a millimeter from the fuselage. So 6.5 is definitely the maximum. There's not very many threads to hook onto. I did throw it on the balancer real quick. Didn't show it, but I did put a little piece of tape on this side to get it a little closer to balance. So let's see what this one does. Alright, test number 1 of the 6.5 by 3.5 Scimitar. Ooh, that one had really low amps and a huge thrust. That's definitely a contender for the top so far. That's actually gives us better than a 1-to-1 power to weight ratio, and we're still under the 30 amp limit. That's nice. Let's do one more just to make sure it wasn't an anomaly. Alright, reset. Test number 2. Ooh, that is really nice. 800 grams, and we're still well under the 30 amp limit. I think that was even less than that 3-bladed prop on that last video I did. That is sweet. That's 3 props on this one. I'm going to change the battery to make sure I've got a fresh battery on the next 3. The next one is 6.5 by 4. All right, let's get it changed out. All right, next test is the 6.5 by 4. This is slightly more pitched than the previous prop that did extremely well. This one did require a bushing that it came with. I did balance it. I needed a little piece of tape on the one side there to get it balanced. So let me get it mounted and we'll get this one tested. Oh, and I will say this one's kind of cool because this is the first one I've noticed that actually had logos on it. It's got the Master Airscrew little logo on it, so that's kind of cool. Alright, this is test number 1 of the 6.5 by 4. Got a fresh battery, so let's see how this one does. Huh, higher amps, less thrust. A lot less thrust. That is crazy. Alright, let's try it one more time. Test number 2 of the 6.5 by 4. Yeah, that is not great. Very interesting. Alright, now let's move on to the 3-bladed props. Alright, next test is the 3-bladed 6 by 3.2. It did not come with any hub adapters. We'll see how this one fits. Hub fits great. I did not balance this one. If it's too noisy, we'll throw it on the balancer and see how it does. Alright, test number 1 of the 6x3.2 3-blade prop. Wow, that one is awesome. 860 grams. Amps were not very high. I think they were 24-ish, something like that. We'll have to review the footage. Let's do another test just to make sure we're not an anomaly. All right, I'm going to watch the amps this time. Test number 2. Wow, another grit one. It's 860 grams. That was only like 24 amps. Excellent. That's another good winner. We got 2 really good ones so far. All right, I got one more prop to go. This is the 6x4. It's a little more pitch, same diameter. All right, last prop. Let's get this one installed. This one does come with hub adapters, so we'll see how this one works. Totally different shape. And I will notice that this one we just tried, this 3-blade, is definitely a thinner material, so probably lighter weight. Yeah, that previous one is definitely it's a lighter weight material, and that I'm sure is affecting the low amperage. Alright, this one is definitely a lot stiffer, heavier material. I think that's going to affect the amperage. It does need a hub adapter. I don't know if the hub's I might have to drill that out. Let's try it. Alright, this is the final prop. This is the 6x4 3-blade. Significantly different material than the previous one. Alright, test number 1, 3-blade 6x4. That's pretty good. Certainly not the best. Amperage was pretty reasonable. Thrust is good. That's about a 1-to-1 ratio with the weight of the AeroScout, if I remember right. We'll put up the numbers. Let's reset it and do one more test. I'm going to watch the amps this time. Yeah, only 22 amps. 745 grams. That is a pretty good one too. So yeah, this is some interesting results on these props. That's for sure. Let's analyze the data. All right, so let's take a look at the test results here. I'm going to include the stock prop and the Convergence 3-blade prop we tested in the last video. These results. I forgot to also mention earlier in this video, the ESC in this plane is the Spectrum Avian Light 30 amp ESC, and that's the one that comes standard in the current model AeroScout. Also, my motor is still the stock original motor. Now, as you can see here, clearly if you're just looking for the maximum thrust, which I expect most of you are, the clear winner here is of the 8 props is the 6x3.2 3-blade prop. This one here produced the most thrust at 860 grams. And it did that in back-to-back tests. Like test 1 and test 2 both produced the same grams of thrust. And it accomplished this with only 1 amp over the stock propeller. And since the AeroScout weighs, and as tested, 785 grams, this gives the AeroScout a 1.09 to 1 power to weight ratio. So it's more than 1 to 1 power weight ratio. So this is clearly the best performing prop, for all-out performance. As you can see here, basically since the amps and the grams of thrust were kind of all over the board, to kind of make it easier to compare them all together, I decided to calculate the grams of thrust per amp to determine how they each stacked up against each other in efficiency. Let's jump over to the website here. So this Scimitar prop here, 6.5 by 3.5, was the most efficient and produced high thrust. And then second place, we go back to the 6 by 3.2, that produced the most thrust. And then in third place would be the 6 by 4 3-blade prop. And then the runner-up was this little 5.5 by 4.5 prop. It actually produced about the same thrust as stock, but it did that with 5 amps less current draw than the stock props. Really, all 4 of these top propellers are going to give you perhaps extended flight times, depending on your throttle control, of course, but they all produce the same or more thrust than the stock prop at almost the exact same amperage
or less. These are all going to be more efficient props. You're going to get you more flight time, and the top three, of course, better performance. So these three props here were all very similar in efficiency and output. You know, we did get a little bit better output in these, but particularly the 6.5 by 4 here, not super great output. And the amps were the highest of almost any of them. Well, the convergence prop was 27 amps, but you know, this one averaging 26 amps, and it was the only one I noticed that had a really high spike right on startup. So this one spiked up to 29 amps, you know, and didn't really produce great thrust. So, you know, these things are all very equivalent. And then the big loser here is this 6 by 3 two-blade. I don't know what's going on with that one. Very inefficient, high amperage, super low thrust. That's this one here, this 6 by 3. I would not recommend this one, at least not for the AeroScout. I don't know what application it would be good for, but definitely isn't a good fit for the AeroScout. So that one's definitely out of the running for me. So you might also consider the sound. We talked about the sound that they all make. You know, it's a factor for me. I do like the different sounds of the props. It's kind of fun when you're flying around to hear it. There's a distinct difference between the two-bladed props and the three-bladed props. The top two props here, the Scimitar prop and then that three-blade prop, very different sound they make. Personally, I think I prefer the sound of the Scimitar prop, the 6.5 by 3.5. And then a close second would be this the three-blade prop, the 6 by 3.2. Very different sounds that they produce. Put down in the comments below which prop you guys think sounds the best. You know, or if there's a particular prop you would pick out of this bunch, you know, why? If you still think that that some of these props down here are a better fit, wouldn't make any sense to me if I had these props that I would utilize any of these props down here. Hopefully it helps you to make an informed decision on how you might want to modify your AeroScout. I'm going to put some links below in the description for many of the items used in while I was making this video, the parts we talked about at the beginning. The Amazon links are affiliate links, so if you decide to purchase something and use those links, I do get a small commission. If I get enough of these, it does help fund the future videos for, you know, buying props like this to do these tests, so I appreciate it. Thanks for watching.